Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sonia, also known as SG from Let the Lady Speak podcast, where we have healthy discussions about life, love, dating, and relationships while promoting self-love and healing. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to do any more Married at First Sight material. However, Myrla did a podcast with Love Starts Here. It's podcast number 53. And I listened to it, and it was a really good podcast. And I feel like there's things that we can learn from Myrla. Now, I actually recorded a similar video for her, and then something told me I was led not to upload it. And then this podcast came out, and I'm happy I didn't because I was able to add to it, and there was information that I feel like is good to share because I think it will be relatable information for a lot of people. Now, I know there are people that are not Myrla fans. I personally don't have any issues with Myrla. I think she carried herself well on this show, and we are all human and allowed to be human, right? I just want to share what I think we can learn from her, and a little bit about my story because, like I said, the stories are really relatable, and anyone who's been in Myrla's shoes kind of understood and knew what was happening and why things unfolded the way that they did. I'll put the link for the podcast in the description box below. Also, I'll put the link to contact me in the description box below, just in case you want to ask questions, you want to send me an email, a message, or you want to listen to my actual podcast, which can be found on all podcast platforms. But first, I have to say thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I have over 100 new subscribers. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining the team, joining the family. I feel the love. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope you continue to enjoy the content. I also want to send a special thanks out to First Home Tuber. She came on and did my first live, and we talked about home ownership. And it was a really informative episode. So please check that out and go subscribe to her channel. Her name is First Home Tuber. I also want to send a special shout out to Messiah Allen, Auntie's Advice, Church Girls Want to Get Married Too with Janice Hilton, and last but definitely not least, Miss Real Rose. They shared my information, joined in the conversation on my live, and it just was very loving and supportive. I want to thank you guys so much. And of course, thanks to my friends and my family who support me no matter what. More love, more love. Okay, let's get into tonight's episode. What can we learn from Miss Myrla? So in the podcast, Myrla gives a little bit more about the backstory of her life, which again, if it's familiar to you, you can recognize it. I kind of figured that she had either seen or experienced some abuse in the past, which is why certain things that happened would alarm her and she sought clarification for. Like when Gil's family said that, he could be loud, she wanted clarification as to what that meant, which is really good, which also lets me know that she had been in therapy or using some type of therapeutic tools to understand what was happening and why it's so important to get clarification. So she talked about how her mom moved here to the States when they were young. They lived in the border part of Texas, and they grew up poor, and her mother wanted a better life for her, and her mother really advocated for her to get education and to go to school. That was the reason for the sacrifice, so that her children could have a better life. She also shared how the abusive relationship between her parents impacted her and how it molded how she dealt with relationships herself. And it was just real powerful. Please make sure you listen to the podcast. But she shared that because she was going to school and she would be in fear of what was happening to her mom, essentially her mother's safety, she really was having a time, and she just wanted to be that help for students. So she herself became a teacher, and then she realized that she could impact the community. And so she chose the path that she chose as far as becoming a coach. Her whole goal is to help motivate women and also be a voice for children. So I think that's empowering. And also, I think a lot of times we don't acknowledge what our past, what we've seen, what we've heard, what we've felt does to us. There's this book. I just got this book. I haven't started reading it, but I've heard so many great things about it. And the title of the book is The Body Keeps the Score. I'm going to let you guys know my thoughts on this book, but I can tell you that, throughout life, every traumatic experience or every experience in general, you feel the impact of one way or another. And sometimes we think we're okay, but we're not necessarily okay. And so she shared how, although she didn't want that life for her mother, she made poor decisions in her relationships, and she had to learn and grow from that. She went and got therapy, and she's learned to love herself. And I think at the end of the day, that is the biggest lesson. So if you don't listen to the rest of this podcast or this episode, just know that you can overcome anything you put your mind to, and that you can be better. You don't have to be where you are. But there was a point in time where she didn't have a voice. She didn't advocate for herself, and she didn't speak up for herself. Those are things that she worked on in therapy and with the people that she surrounded herself with. So I'm going to get into that. But I just wanted to give like a little backstory, because again, I think a lot of us can relate to coming from broken homes, toxic environments, unhealthy environments, and trying to break that mold and be something bigger and greater and not relive the trauma that you've seen. So I thought this was powerful. Again, check out the podcast. What can we learn from Myrla? Number one, the importance of self-awareness. And the definition of self-awareness is the ability to turn into your feelings, thoughts, and actions. Also, just knowing who you are. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay not to always excel. What isn't okay is that you don't choose to evaluate yourself, and you don't choose to learn about what has happened, how has that impacted you, what kind of choices you want to make in the future, right? She knows who she is. She gives herself room to grow, and she gives herself grace, which is so important. You should always give yourself the grace you give others, but just give yourself the grace that your creator gave to you, And she takes agency over herself. Meaning she is in charge of herself, and she understands that she's in charge of her actions, her reactions, her decisions, and the things that, she decides to allow to move her. And again, that's very important. You have to be self-aware and be in charge of who you are, because you can't control anyone or anything else. You can control you and what you decide to do, right? So that's something I feel like we can learn from her. Number two, she learned about setting boundaries and communicating. And she admitted on the podcast that communicating her boundaries is something she wants to continue to work on. She is a work in progress. Once upon a time, she didn't have a voice at all. So she continues to work on having a voice. And she was speaking to not speaking out as clearly and firmly regarding her concerns with how she was being spoken to. But she also has come a long way, and she's able to say what she likes and doesn't like, what's okay and what isn't. And she said her takeaway from this show is basically that she has to be treated a certain way, spoken to a certain way, handled a certain way, and she has to use her voice, which again is very powerful. She's also really good at knowing when and when not to speak. Everyone doesn't need to know your every thought, feeling, and view. Everyone isn't a safe space for that. Speaking of which, I'm going to record a video after this video titled Creating a Safe Space. So check it out. But not everyone is okay with your boundaries, and it's up to you to communicate that, but it's also up to you to protect your heart, and guard yourself from someone whose intentions may or may not be good. So I love the fact that she knew when to speak. Another thing that she did was she did not negotiate on her non-negotiables. I think at the end of the day, Myrla wants love and she wants a relationship. And she talks about in the podcast how she doesn't like to date. And that was one of the reasons why she chose Married at First Sight. But at the same time, she really had time to reflect and say, these are my non-negotiables and I can't budge here. Your non-negotiables are not up for negotiation. They're not up for discussion. They're not up for change. If you decide that something is your non-negotiable, that means that is something that is absolute. It involves your safety, your core values, how you want to live your life, things of that sort. So, non-negotiable isn't a person's height. It is what you hold near and dear to your heart. And that's why you do not negotiate those things. Okay. Another thing that we can learn from Miss Myrla is she knew how to manage her emotions. You never saw her acting out. You never saw her making emotional decisions, right? Although, yeah, I want to be loved. I want a person to wake up to every day. I want a partner in life, but I don't want them just based off of how I'm feeling in the moment. I have to look at the big picture. And she didn't react at times where she could have react. She didn't act out. She didn't shame him or anything like that. She kept it even keeled. Part of that is because she's an introvert, but I think also she's learned that you have to manage your emotions. If people know that their words and actions can make you move or act out a certain way, they're going to use them. It's like having a remote control. They can turn you up, turn you down, change the channel, turn you on, turn you off. You never want to have someone have that kind of power over you. And so if you manage your emotions, you manage yourself, you can think clearly and logically and make clear, logical decisions. And she did that very well. The fifth thing that we can learn from Ms. Myrla is she respected her husband, although he was disrespectful. She respected her husband, and that in turn respects herself. Sometimes you have to say, I respect myself enough to not disrespect you. And not everyone agrees with that. But if you are a believer, Bible talks about wives respect your husband, right? You're only accountable for you. You are responsible for what you put out in the universe. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your behaviors, and your actions towards others are what you are going to be judged by. And she chose to show him respect. And in turn, she respected herself and she respected her higher power, because that is what we're supposed to do. Now, you can remove yourself from a situation. You cannot engage, which is what she did. Sometimes she would just disengage. Sometimes she would just remove herself from conversations or say no comment, but at no time did she act out. So she wasn't ruled by her emotions and her ego, because sometimes that pride, emotion, and ego will get you in trouble. So she did that well. The next thing that Miss Myrla did well is that she had a great mindset. I loved her mindset. And again, this is another way to operate out of logic versus your emotions. She said, I'm choosing to look at the brighter side of things. When her friend was asking her about his bald head and, just different things, she was like, I chose to make the best of it. I'm choosing to love my husband, meaning love is a action, emotion, and feeling. It's the combination of the three, right? If I feel that I love you, then I'm going to show you that I love you, right? And it all starts from some type of emotion that you get towards that person. And she chose to show him love, although she didn't have that feeling and that emotion. She's respecting him and she's loving him in action, not in love. She never said she was in love with him, but it's all about a choice. My mindset with money, I choose to save. I choose to invest. I choose to grow and to develop and become a better person. Life is about choices. We all get a hand, and you decide to play your hand however you play your hand. And that's kind of how I saw her on the show. There was one episode I was like, oh no, she's going to leave. When he wouldn't make her a smoothie, I was like, she's not going to stay with him. But I do understand. I'm choosing to play my hand this way. This is what life has given me. What am I going to do? What are my choices? And you can choose to have a positive attitude, or you can choose to have a negative attitude. You can choose to learn and grow, or you can choose to stay the same. It's all up to you. But life is a choice. And I love the fact that she chose to make the best out of the situation that she was in. Another thing that we can learn from Myrla is that she allowed a person to be who they were. She didn't try to change, mold, or correct Gil, because she needed to see exactly who he was. You want to see the character of a person. If you're going to tie yourself to this person in life, you need to know exactly who they are. And she allowed that to happen, and that aided in her decision. whether or not she should stay or go. Another thing that she said she did on the podcast is she said she surrounds herself with these kind of people. And I thought this was valuable. This is very important for growth and health in your life. Okay. She said she has people who hold her accountable. You got to have people you trust enough that they can hold you accountable, right? And accountability is key. She has people who fill her spiritual and emotional cup. She said they pray together, they have great conversations. She just has a good group of people around her. They give her words of encouragement, things of that sort. She surrounds herself with and sought out people who is where she wants to be. She said, I saw women who were, very confident, and that is what I wanted. That's who I wanted to be. And so she sought after those type of people in that environment. And again, that's a great place to be. If you want to be better, why not learn from people who've done the things that you're trying to achieve? Sometimes we don't want to ask for help, especially in our community, but it's okay to ask for help. And you'll be surprised at who wants to help you, but they just want you to want it, right? Some people want to be spoon fed, but some people want to teach you how to fish. So make sure you go for the people who are willing to teach you how to fish. You'll last longer. She has family and friends that are loving and supportive. And most importantly, she sought out resources to help her. She's in therapy. She's been in therapy. That's been ongoing for her. And then also she uses therapeutic tools, right? So again, that is mindset, having a different type of mindset. They call it cognitive behavioral therapy, but basically it's a mindset. It's a way to set your mind. So she did that. And lastly, the last thing that she did that I feel like we can learn from is she practices self-care. I call myself the self-love advocate. I am an advocate for healing. I am an advocate for therapy, and I am an advocate for self-love. If you don't love you, if you don't have a really healthy relationship with yourself, it's really hard to have a healthy relationship with someone else. There's a lot of content out here about how to get a man, how to keep a man, how to use seduction, how to use all these things to get into a relationship. But the problem with that is that if you're not healthy, it's going to self-destruct. It's going to destruct. If you look at Marilyn Monroe, even Diane Carroll, I'm going to do a video on Diane Carroll. Marilyn Monroe, Diane Carroll, these were women who were very seductive and very beautiful, but they were not happy on the inside. And they had so much unhealed trauma, and it led to a bunch of unhealthy relationships, a lot of abuse, and a lot of loneliness. So it's important to talk about healing and therapy and growing and improving as a person versus focusing on being a seductress. You know what I mean? But she takes care of herself. She works out 6 days a week. She goes to therapy. She works on herself continuously because she knows there's areas that she continues to learn and grow in. And she does things that she enjoys. She does things that make her happy. The best way to attract goodness in your life is to have gratitude, to function out of gratitude, to give to people, being a person of a giving, kind heart, and also to build a life that you love. When good people see, they have a good life, I want to be surrounded by that kind of person, then those are the kind of people that you attract, So you'll be surprised with what you attract based on who and where you are on the inside. And that's the truth. So my final thoughts are, as far as the show goes, I think production had issues with her honesty, and they kind of cut her a certain way because I think they just wanted a villain, and then Gil was a good salesperson, so they went by the sale of the good guy. I really could do a lot on him. I'm not going to. I may do something on the personality, but I'm not going to. But there's a lot that can be learned from just this relationship alone, actually this whole cast. So at the end of the day, she's a woman, she's a human being. She doesn't really like dating, but she wants love. She wants companionship, and she wants a good life, and she wants someone to share her life with and continue to grow. And I think we all want that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's going to be bumps in the road, but just make sure you make the right decision from the logical side of yourself versus the ego and emotional side of yourself, so that you can keep yourself safe. Because she could have easily just been like, I have someone, they found someone, and tried to figure it out. And I don't think that would have ended well for her. I don't think it would have been a healthy place for her to be either. So that's it for tonight's content. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for staying to the end and watching. If you have stayed, I appreciate you. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you have not. And I will see you here sometime this week. I have one video I'm going to do on it's going to be about Zach's family, but I'm not going to use Zach. I'm going to talk about how toxic families can impact relationships. And then I'm going to also do another video about creating a safe space. I actually have that on my podcast, but I'm going to do just a quick video for YouTube. So that is what's coming up. If you have any ideas, please make sure you leave it in the comments below. And that is it. That is all. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. Please don't forget to love you for who you are. Have a good night. Bye-bye.